we're Arctic Monkey.
Hello and welcome back to the Britime Podcast. Today is episode 26 in our season preview series. And it is the number 7th ranked team today, the Minnesota Vikings, who we've got pitted out at a very respectable 10-6. And today I'm joined by Matt and Sam. Sam, who's looking very suave, I have to add.
I always do.
That's very questionable, I have to say.
I bring the heat. I bring the heat.
Rarely, I'd like to add that. Rarely bring the heat.
Has been known to happen.
However, this Vikings team, we have got pitted out at 10-6. This is a team that, again, we're a bit different on between us. Sam's got him at 12-4.
Have I?
I've got him at 11-5. And Matt, you've got him at 8-8. Now,
12-4.
Sam's reaction is actually kind of similar to my one for this team, looking back, because this schedule is incredibly tough in my opinion. Just a very quick run through. You've got Packers, Colts, Titans, Texans, Seahawks, then the Falcons, then a bye, then the Packers again, then the Lions, then the Bears, then the Cowboys, then the Panthers, then the Jags, then Matt's Buccaneers, then the Bears again, then the Saints, and then the Lions once more. It's a grueling schedule, if I'm honest.
Early bye as well into that long run of...
Yeah, exactly. It's a bye, week 7, I think it is. So it's a very tough run. And I think when I pitted these guys out, there's a lot of coin flip games here. A lot of games where they're going to be up against very good teams who can really match them. And it's going to come down to on the day. So in that respect, it's kind of hard to predict. However, I do favour them slightly in those matchups, which I think is why I have got them 11-5. But Matt, you've got them at 8-8. Maybe just like to run us through why you're slightly lower.
That's really harsh.
Yeah, so for me, when we did our predictions, it was, I think, just after the sort of news came about Dalvin Cook, the rumours of a potential holdout, and there's been nothing more since then. I think it's maybe waiting to see what the sort of agreement is between the NFLPA and the NFL, and especially with the sort of sit-out, I guess the way to call it, that's being discussed is one of the last bits they're negotiating. It could be even easier to hold out this season because you don't just have to say it's because you're negotiating, it's also because of everything going on with COVID. There's a lot of uncertainty to it, and I'm almost leaning on the side of the longer it goes without any positive news on this, the more I'm thinking it's going to happen. So I'm looking at this as a team without Dalvin Cook, and it makes me start to think you've got Kirk Cousins as like the quarterback there, but he's a guy that he's not your big moment guy. He is a consistent, you know what you're going to get. But in the big moments when under the bright lights, you're not happy with what you're going to get at times. Like, he doesn't quite live up to what you need. And I think without Dalvin Cook, there's going to be times when this team lacks the kind of the punch and a bit of the firepower to get over that, especially as well without Stephon Diggs. We'll get into the weapons in that room. But I think for me, Dalvin Cook, as much as they've got guys in that room, they've got Mattison who could come in and do a good job. He is not Dalvin Cook.
Yeah.
Which is why I'm harsh on them, I guess you could say. But I've got them losing these as coin flips. I'm seeing some of these as one-score games.
I kind of want to send a retort there.
Yeah. Shoot.
So, obviously, at the start of this, coming into this episode, recording right now, I had not looked at what I'd had them statted out at. I'd only looked at what we had them as our consensus.
Yep.
So I did this probably about this time last month. A lot of things have changed since then. And I'm genuinely a little bit surprised I had them going that high. And then James says, oh, it's a hard schedule. I look down and I go, yeah, that is a hard schedule. But I kind of look at each game and I go, Packers, yeah, I think they win that game week 1. Colts, yeah, I think they probably win that game. Titans, I think they definitely win that game. Texans, I think they probably beat the Texans. Seahawks, winnable game. That's one of my coin flip games, which I don't think I gave them that one. Falcons, I don't think they win that game.
Really?
No, I do.
I was going to say.
I think the Falcons is like a lock-up.
Yep.
Green Bay Packers, I'm going to say they don't win that one because that coin flip game.
At Green Bay.
They're going to lose to them. They're going to beat the Lions. They're going to sweep Chicago. They're going to beat them both times and the Lions. They'll sweep both of them. Cowboys, they will beat. Panthers, they will beat. Jags, they will beat. I've got the Tampa game as a coin flip game, and I think they lose in New Orleans.
Yeah. I think for me, maybe the big bit that we differ on then is Detroit. I've got them in a double, and then on the Bears, I've got them kind of trading games.
Ooh.
So it's a few like that where, and like the same with Green Bay, I've got them both taking the home game. So it's but those are all games that I could see coming down to the last play, the last drive.
Yeah, and do you know what actually flips it for me that I think will be in Kirk Cousins' favour?
Mm-hmm.
Which is Kirk Cousins, when the pressure's not on, is a very, very good quarterback. Like, if he could do that all the time, it would be kind of like, oh my god, he's top tier.
Yeah.
Now, when he folds is when the lights are on brightest. Night games, Monday night, Sunday night football, on national television, in teams that have got big, loud fan bases, things like that. That pressure's not going to be there this season. The fan pressure, even like they're talking of, yes, there might actually be fans at NFL games. They're suggesting that could happen at some point this season. But at
about
max,
25%.
max, they're talking 25% capacity. Now, you go to Arrowhead on Sunday night football, and you're playing in a primetime game at Arrowhead per se. Obviously, they don't play at Arrowhead, but playing at Arrowhead on a primetime game with 20,000 people in the stands compared to Arrowhead completely packed out, that's two completely different games.
Yeah. Oh, no,
that is two completely different games. And I think that would work very well in the Vikings' favour. And I kind of just thinking about this now, I think this is a team that really, even though there's no one really on that team that I go, oh, I love that team. I love that player. I think they're great. They're going to be the best at their position. I think they've got a lot of players that are just, they're role doers. I think they've got quietly one of the best coaches in the league. And yes, it's not out of the range of outcomes that they go 8-8, and they're a very disappointing team. But if they play to their potential and they just kind of let all the noise around all the other teams happen around them, I think this could be one of those teams that gets to the end of the year, does go 12-4, and everyone kind of went, hang on a sec, they went 12-4? Like, what?
Yeah, I think that's the thing for me as well is even at 8-8, I've still got them where I've sort of broken it all down into like a playoff bracket. I've still got them making the playoffs from that division at 8-8. But I think for me, that's almost the kind of, I've got them predicted at their floor. I will not be at all shocked if this team does come out and go 12-4, and as I said, take some of these coin flip games. And I think especially if Dalvin Cook does play and is involved, suddenly, I would almost off the back of that say, well, they're at least a 10-win team. Mine is purely off of thinking of this as without Dalvin Cook potentially, and just for me, if it's a coin flip game, go down to the last drive. Kirk Cousins is not my first choice of who I want kind of trying to lead my team down the field, especially without Dalvin Cook there. But as I said, this is a good team. This is one of those teams that, I said this before the episode, they're the Vikings. You know almost what you're going to get in a way with them.
Yeah.
And I feel
They'll
like
bottle it in January.
Yes, but they're good enough and they're so good across the board that it's almost like nothing massively stands out to be like, I love this part of this team. So they're almost kind of almost the unattractive team to talk about that we've got in our top 10 that's like, the Vikings. They're going to be good. It's how good.
I think they've got a lot of dependable players. I think that's it. There's no superstars.
There's not a Tyreek Hill who you're going to see just absolutely burning one. Like, it's that sort of thing,
But they're all dependable players that can get the job done. And I think
Vikings,
that's where I have them swinging those sort of games.
Yeah, the Vikings are that friend that you don't always have the best time with, but they're always there. They're always there for you when you need them.
I was going to say, we've all got a name in it.
Yeah.
Thanks, James.
We've all got a mate named Sam.
You know what? And I am the Vikings.
For now.
I guess dependable, you take that.
Yeah, I'm dependable. I'm a sure thing.
Unless it's on the golf
ladies.
Jesus, this took a weird turn, so maybe we should shift it back to the Vikings, because that would take a weird turn that I don't know if I'm comfortable with at this point.
Be a short conversation.
Okay, we spoke about
conversation.
We spoke about the quarterback, spoke about the running backs. Maybe we should speak about the wide receivers. Obviously, Adam Thielen, we know what he is. We know the talent that's there. I'd like to dial down into that first round pick, the 22nd pick out of LSU, might add, Justin Jefferson. Whereabouts does he fit into this team?
I think he's sort of been brought in to obviously that's not the expectation his first year, but to kind of grow into what was the kind of Diggs role, to kind of start to look towards filling that sort of void of that big name receiving threat. I think quickly, as you mentioned his name, Thielen, I just kind of want to almost put that I think this is going to be a big year for him. Yeah. Essentially, I think this could be. I know Sam's already giving me that look, but I just think for me, without Diggs there, without the distractions, as long as a couple of these other guys, and this the slightly smaller name guys, like if Justin Jefferson responds quickly to the league, and there's enough of another threat around him that teams aren't just like double coverage and lock him down. Like if there's enough of another threat, he can lead this receiver room and have a very effective year while doing it. It might not be incredible numbers, it might not be flashy this and that. It's just being a very dependable guy that Kirk Cousins knows. Always go like the play's going a bit right. Where's Adam Thielen?
Yeah, I think you're going to get that no matter what when you take Adam Thielen is now like Diggs has moved out of town. Adam Thielen's coming off multiple Pro Bowl years, couple All-Pro years. Like he is the number one top dog, and he's a great story. And he's kind of come in, made a name for himself, made a load of money, changed his he's like the picture of what people see as like the American dream. Come in with very little expectations, and then over a couple of years you grind and you work and you get there.
Got an image of him as Captain America in my head. I don't know why.
I think I prefer that one. Yeah.
But there's a lot to be said for a player who does really, really well playing alongside another Pro Bowl receiver who is that good and takes away that thing. And now, I'm not saying that Adam Thielen won't be productive, because he will be. He's going to soak up, shed tons of targets because he is the number one and he is out and out the best receiver on that team at this given moment. But is that just going to be a whole load of meaningless passes? Is that going to be a whole load of 6 yards there, 7 yards there? And yes, he will rack up, but you quite consistently see it with receivers that they can put out good numbers and they can last year is a great year. For a good example, for Odell Beckham Jr., he went over 1,000 yards. For a lot of receivers, you'd go 1,000 yards. What a great year! But it was a lot of just kind of, yep, there's a target, there's a catch. There's nothing that kind of went. He never went out and really won you weeks in fantasy. He never went out and won Browns games.
Yeah.
And I think a lot of what Adam Thielen's main production is going to be very tied to how well Justin Jefferson can step into that Diggs role. Because if Adam Thielen, at the moment, if I'm a defensive coordinator, and because everybody else there, I'm seeing a whole lot of not that much, I'm just going to go, right, I'm just going to scheme Adam Thielen out of the game, and then I'm going to try and make all the unproven guys step up and prove it. And yes, maybe one of them does, and the Vikings have got a gem in the rough, and everything's great. But if Justin Jefferson doesn't take to the league straight away, and I don't think anyone expects him to be Diggs straight away, so off of that, you've got to expect that Adam Thielen's going to get a lot more attention from defenses. So the rest of the wide receiver core are just going to have to step up.
Yeah, I think that's pretty much. I think we're pretty much on a line with him then. That it's some other names are going to have to step up, and Jefferson's got to start quick. And I think where you're sort of saying it is going to be a lot of sort of like little plays here, not a big game-winning play. I think that's what I'm seeing it as well. But just one, he's not going to put up flashy stat lines, go 80 yards to the house, win him the game that way. I think he's just going to be a dependable guy. He's just going to be Cousins' guy that he seems to find. Almost like there's sometimes we see it with Lockett and Russell Wilson, where they should not, he shouldn't be able to get the ball to him, but he just does because they're just on a wavelength. And I think that's so important for them this year if they can get on that kind of a wavelength.
There's a lot to be said for that kind of guy who's consistent, always comes down the ball, the 6 yards here, 6 yards there, and that's very well and good. However, a lot of the time, if you've got a team that's got, in the same way that if you, that guy pairs brilliantly with the guy who goes deep and converts on the third and long. If you've got one without the other, the whole system falls apart 9 times out of 10. There is very few, there are occasions where you see teams like in New England, where you've got kind of Julian Edelman, who just consistently with Brady would make these plays, and they would lean on the run game, and they wouldn't necessarily always want that deep threat, but that's with Tom Brady and with Bill Belichick and with those kind of defenses. And yes, the Vikings have got a good defense, but the only way in which I see like Adam Thielen having like maybe scoring production is if Justin Jefferson kind of becomes that deep target. Otherwise, it could be a lot of like long drives where yes, he's getting shed tons of target, but it's all between the 20s, because when you're on the 50-yard line and you've got a third down and 20, you don't have the deep threat. So everyone just goes, right, we'll put 3 men on Thielen and then we'll stick everybody else deep, cover that line, and what are you going to do?
Yeah. That's all I'm saying. Yeah, I think we're pretty much saying the same thing. Without one of these names stepping up to take that other role, or at least a kind of committee of them doing it, it is going to be rough for him. And I'm not saying I'm looking for Thielen in fantasy, to be honest. There's a lot of other names at where he's going that I'd take instead. Like, I just think he's going to look good and kind of just fill a role for that, for Kirk Cousins mainly. Almost a bailout kind of guy.
Yeah.
Yeah. Sticking on the fantasy front then as well, and sort of bringing in the Vikings defense, Sam, which you did just mention there.
Yep.
Where would you have them, if you have to draft the defense, obviously, where would you have them in your sort of rankings? What level are we talking here?
I'm going to go relatively high. Probably top 6 or 7. And I'm saying that off of the back of they might not be the best defense statistically in the NFL, but for fantasy, they've got a number of guys who I really like. Danielle Hunter, I really like Eric Kendricks, like guys that will put up big years. And then their safeties, especially, you've got Anthony Harris and Harrison Smith, who are both Pro Bowl level safeties, and they're playing against teams like you play 2 games a year against Matt Stafford, throws a lot of picks because he's a gunslinger. You play 2 games a year against Mitch Trubisky, it's Mitch Trubisky, and they're not going to be a great offense, so they're probably not going to score points. So off of the back of that, and I mean, just looking at the other teams they play, Jacksonville, probably not going to score loads of points on them. Carolina Panthers, I like the team. I think they can win a lot of games, but I don't think the reason they're going to win those games is high-scoring games. Even the Green Bay Packers, there's a number of unknowns around there, so they could be dodgy and lose a lot of points. Atlanta Falcons, Matt Ryan throws picks, he's airing the ball out. So there's a number of the Colts. If you get the wrong side of Rivers, he could throw a lot of picks. So they've got kind of a good schedule for playing teams that they could put up a lot of points in.
Yeah,
I think for me they're in that sort of question, obviously, of when defenses start coming off the board. And I think I've seen this amongst, they're probably within that top 5 that go. They're up there with the likes of the Ravens, with the 49ers, the Patriots, just partly as well because they're a good defense on what is expected to be a good team.
Yeah.
So I think they're going to be one of those ones that gets picked, and it's going to be they're going to be within your league. If it's a 12-man league, they're going to be within that first half of defenses to go in the top 6 of that, I'd say.
Yeah, I've definitely got them ranked at a similar level, I'd say, for sure. And sticking on the fantasy front, Matt, you mentioned Dalvin Cook, the holdout potential there. Now, if he does hold out, is Mattison going to be the guy, or is there another guy perhaps they're looking to use? And I guess my question there is, what value would you put on that next guy up?
I think Mattison does get at least the kind of first shot at it and the first opportunity. Then it becomes, if he doesn't sort of grab it by the horns and run with it, it's going to just become a bit of a toss-up for it, a bit of just a committee sort of thing of ride the hot hand. And I think for me, in fantasy, I'm avoiding both parts, the top 2, I guess you could call it, of this backfield. I think for me with Cook, there's already that little bit in the back of your head of his injury history isn't the best. When he's on the field, he deserves his ADP. He is a phenomenal player. But now there's not just the slight injury risk that's sort of always there, I feel like, is in the back of your head with Dalvin Cook. It's, is he even going to get out on the field? And I think for me, if I'm picking around where he's been going, sometimes he's been going as within the top 4. Sometimes anywhere sort of between 4th and 6th, depending on your preference on him. Because some people are still taking... Because if he plays, and he's the Dalvin Cook we've seen, I'd say top 5 pick is warranted. But for me, I'm not going to take that risk. If I'm picking that, I'm going to take one of the other guys that's there around it. Your Derrick Henrys, Kamara, like that sort of guy. And Mattison, his ADP is inflated on the chance that if Cook's out and Mattison does inherit the workload, you could get great value. But it's another big if. So I think for me, I'm just avoiding this because at where you'd be taking them, I think there's more surefire options.
Yeah. This is the 3rd year on the bounce now that we've had a big fantasy name running back holdout. 2 years ago, you had Lev Bell. James, how did that work out?
I don't know what you're talking about.
Oh, you always get burnt by this, don't you?
Right.
I honestly, it's no
Year
comment. I
2.
think is the only thing I should say right now.
Year 2, we had Melvin Gordon with the holdout for fantasy. James, how did that work out?
Worked out great for the guy who got Eckler.
Is that all we got time for? Do we want to end the podcast here? Because this you're putting me on full tilt.
I was going to go on and talk about how I really like Alexander Mattison going forward. And I don't think Amir Abdullah's got a shot, really. I think he's kind of had his chance in the league. He'll probably bounce around, get the odd carry. If Alexander Mattison, really like him going forward, as long as Cook's not on the field. And then behind him, if on the off chance he goes down, I think probably Mike Boone's the next guy to get a shot. But that's just me basically listing off the depth chart for a good offense. Like, you don't need me to tell you that. My point, which I'm trying to say, is for 2 years on the trot, one person here got ballsy and tried to go for the... He didn't take him in... Actually, did you take Bell in the first round?
No. I think it was the second round. I think I took Fournette first round. Round.
Yeah. So he got ballsy and he kind of went. He kind of went for that. Right. I can. If this guy comes back, I'll be getting a steal, and it went badly. For where these guys would be expected to go, even if they slip past their ADP, someone is going to make that decision. Chances are they're going to get burnt. Yeah. And in the same way that someone might reach for Alexander Mattison, and then 5-6 weeks later, Cook comes back halfway through the season. Like Austin Eckler owners, if Austin Eckler hadn't been outrageously good for the first 5 weeks last year, and you'd only got 8 weeks of kind of average low-end running back 1 to running back 2 stats, which still would have been on a season great pace, but then you get the starter comes back and they're splitting carries, then you're not happy with where you drafted Eckler. So really, I would suggest, unless you can get either of these guys for just pennies on the dollar, just steer clear. Not worth it. Because otherwise, James, how does that fare?
Yeah, you're pretty miserable for the rest of the season. I think say no more on that one. Honestly,
it's only really speaking of those guys, the situations we've seen. It's only really James Conner where you've really found the value around these types.
Yeah, that was good.
Behind Lev Bell. Yeah, that was Sam was the
that was good.
But short-term value, I like to add.
Exactly, that's what I mean. For like a one season, like in a redraft.
I didn't win our league that year.
Yeah,
scored the most points by about 400 points.
Who did you lose to in the semis?
But I lost in the semis.
But I think it's just one of those points to raise of it's. You can almost look at it as currently on the big running back holdouts in fantasy terms of picking one of the 4 players really involved in it. It's almost been a 25% hit rate. For me, picking in the first round, and Mattison's been going pretty high. You're sort of looking potentially around I think the 7th I've seen him going. It's that sort of region where his name's getting played, even slightly earlier in some mocks.
Yeah.
Do I want a 25% hit chance on maybe, let's say, my 6th or 7th rounder? Not at all.
No, you don't. because Cook could come back at any point.
Yep.
Like the entire time taking it back to the Lev Bell thing, the entire time I had James Conner, I literally picked him up off of the waiver wire. I was basically just the one who was on it quickest. Got there. We weren't running a fab system. I was just had priority, and I was the first to try and get him off of free agency. Picked him up, and then for the first week, he was like, oh, sick, like, I've got no investment in this. And then as weeks kept going, and he became more of an integral part, it became more and more unpleasant listening to this this like talk that is Lev Bell coming back? Because if Lev Bell comes back, that just ruins James Conner for the rest of the year, and that was unpleasant. And I didn't have any draft capital in him. If you've got a 5th or a 6th or a 7th round pick in there, then suddenly you're going, what?
Yeah.
Yeah.
I think to quickly rattle off a couple other names, I think we are getting a bit short.
Yeah.
Is Adam Thielen. You're drafting. I think predominantly like someone's going to be taking him. And if you've got confidence that Jefferson can come into the league and get going, you're taking him. I don't really like him at his current ADP, so I think I'm looking for him to slip a bit. But he's the type of like he is going to be drafted, and it's probably going to be around the 3rd round.
Yep.
Then after that, you've got Justin Jefferson, name that's just come up. His ADP with a lot of the rookies this year is a little bit higher than I feel it should be. Yep. But I think actually, if you're going to get fantasy value from a wide receiver in this team, it's him. Is coming out, getting into the league and having a hot start. Then the other player that's, I think, at the position is Kyle Rudolph, tight end.
Yeah.
Again, there's going to be some receptions going after Diggs left. That target share's got to be spread out somewhere. He could benefit from that and potentially even in the red zone. It's another one. It's a pretty much guaranteed starting tight end in a offense on a good team. So you are drafting him. And he's going to be in that sort of back end range. Ooh.
There's one more player you've missed before we leave. One more player you haven't mentioned.
Is it?
Is James going to do it?
Go on.
Come on, back. It's Dan Bailey.
Yes, Dan Bailey.
Dan Bailey, very
Yep.
draftable. He's got really great accuracy throughout his career. Really dependable guy. I'm sure he'll miss a kick in the NFC Championship game, and we'll be here. And then they'll change some rule to try and help the Vikings fans get there or something. But
bold.
But I think for fantasy, Dan Bailey is a very, very playable kicker.
Yeah, no, I agree with
Felix
that.
got kickers, definitely.
Yeah.
And as we said, the defense as well, if you're on a league. Defenses.
I just love our 2 episodes in a row we've got kickers that are worth talking about.
Love it.
Finally, we can talk about kickers because kickers' lives matter as well.
I need to get me a For the Brand t-shirt or something.
Honestly, love a bit of Dan Bailey. But he's good.
Oh, if you say it.
But he's no Jake Elliott, that's all I'm going to say.
Oh, have a day off.
Who is no Justin Tucker?
There it is.
We've done it.
You two are Justin Tucker and Daniel Jones. Oh, every episode.
Justin Tucker's no Daniel Jones, though, is he?
It's just a good thing we're off the Perriman talk because
just wait till we get to our draft in the listener league, mate. I'm glad I'm the one in control of the mouse because.
Hang on, why do you get to be in control of the mouse?
Yeah, hold on.
I record it. I run the account. Sorry, boys.
No, I think we should be in one spot for that or something. There should be we get it on a big screen, and I don't want you controlling that mouse.
Depends on.
I'm better at fantasy than you. Always beating you every year. So.
Gee, this is real fighting talk.
Oh, mate, I'll question that.
Oh.
Go on.
Our overall records over the last 2 years, I'm
ahead.
Spank you.
I'm ahead.
Overall record? No, you bloody aren't.
Head to head.
I'm sorry.
Head to head.
Yeah. Anyway, we got to wrap it up.
I didn't realise the overall record over the course of a few years wins you rings, mate. You've won none. That's all that matters. Neither have I, but I'm not the one
I
arguing
was
it.
going to say, you said that like you were going to pull out show us the
defend
ring.
myself there. But on that lovely bombshell, that is all we've got time for today. So be sure to check us out on YouTube. Go like, comment, and subscribe. Also check us out on Instagram and Twitter. We're at the Britiron. And we're also setting up a listener league, of which the draw is happening on I think it's the 31st of this month, the last day of the month.
And you'll be drafting against all of us, not just Matthew.
Yeah, obviously.
Of course.
Might mute James.
Oh,
I'll kid him.
this has gone too far. But yeah, go register your interest on our social media accounts and get involved. But for now, thank you for listening, and we'll see you next time.
See ya.